as well. That's very difficult to do because, as you may or may not know, hold on, let me just pause this. As you may or may not know, making content is difficult and time consuming, and so is also streaming. And so when I have to do both of those things, it is even more time consuming and takes a lot of work. However, right now, because I have a steady kind of workflow on like what I'm doing, my hair is on fleek. Awesome. My hair looks good. It's going to be a mess when I hit the gym. Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is come up with a balance where we can frequently stream and have the live discussions, but also too, I can kind of like work on my stuff. So today I got up early and I wrote 4 pages. Twitch has audio only ads now. What? That's insane. But yeah, I got up early today and I immediately started working on the Final Fantasy X retrospective video, which I think I have a good angle on it now, because I also worked on it yesterday, and yesterday was kind of a hot mess for it because I was like, I haven't really wrote an S. Why the hell does it do that? God damn it. Hold on, let me see if I can fix this, because I don't know why it doesn't do this when I'm not streaming. Let me see if I can come back. I wanted to use the nice NVIDIA broadcast camera. Let's see if it'll let me, or if it'll, no, it won't. God, why does it do that? Okay, well, wait, what does it even say when I do that? It says like run the camera hub. What is it even saying? Let me see something. It's like, please use camera hub to use out of a virtual cam, and like it's so blurred out. Camera hub to run Elgato virtual cam. What? Wait, why though? Okay, I'm going to figure that out eventually. My girlfriend decided to turn the vacuum on just now. I hope you guys don't hear too much of that. Anyway, to finally finish my damn sentence, I am trying to have a balance where I'm able to actively stream and continue to make content on here at a balanced rate. So I got up early. I wrote 4 pages on the retrospective. Yesterday, I was really trying to write on it, and it was just not working. Like, I couldn't really figure it out. And then I went to the gym, and at the gym, I really got a good thesis about like what I was trying to like write about, because a lot of retrospectives, I feel like that get made, they are essentially like, all they do is kind of recap the events of the game. And I don't want to just like recap the events of a game that you guys have already played like a bajillion times over. You know what I'm saying? Like, you already know what happens in Final Fantasy X. You already know. So I don't want to just, it's not going to be the type of like video where I just sit there and I walk you through every single thing that happened in Final Fantasy X, and then I make some like light commentary on it. I wanted to avoid doing exactly that, honestly. So what I did instead was I focused on exactly what I wanted to say and the points I wanted to get across. And so as a result, it's not going to probably be, it's going to be very long, especially for as long as like my videos go for. It'll be like maybe like 30, possibly 40 minutes. Actually, I don't even know, because I got 4 pages so far and I don't even know how many more pages I'm right. So I could potentially see it being like 30 or 40 minutes, which is very long for you know, my normal videos. But yeah, it's not going to like recap anything. It's not going to be like a video where you're just watching and I'm just like play by play re-explaining Final Fantasy X to you, like again, like a lot of retrospectives can tend to be. It's legitimately an essay on it for people who are already experts on Final Fantasy X. The problem is that yesterday when I started writing on it, it was turning into a video where it was just me telling you, hey, this is what happened in the game. And then I scrapped it because I was like, this is garbage. I don't want to watch this because I don't think I'm saying anything profound. So it's like, fuck. I started over today, and what I wrote today, I think really, really clicks. And you can kind of see that in one of the tweets that I made today, which was that the series has like the best itemization. And so I have like a whole page dedicated to how good the items are in Final Fantasy X. And honestly, even with that whole page, I really don't think I necessarily cover everything about why the itemization in Final Fantasy X is so good. To elaborate on that, we're going to talk about the new stuff in a bit. I promise. I just want to talk about the work I got done today because I'm kind of proud of it, and I'm excited to finally share it with you guys when it does happen. But like, to elaborate on what I mean by itemization, because I know that's not like a term that we normally use with game design, although it should be, because it's like such an important thing. Itemization is basically the types of items that you get in the game, but it also describes how useful they are, you know, the sort of utility of that item. And it also describes how well balanced that utility is. So it can be anything from the armor that you get to the potions that you get, and how the game interacts with those items in such a way that you're using those different items for different things, and the kind of importance and value of those items. You know, so for an example, another, you know, Final Fantasy game that has really good itemization built into it is Final Fantasy VII with the materia system, right? So with materia, you can find, you know, items that, I mean, that's what materia is. You can find materia throughout the world. And so this actually incentivizes you to want to like explore every part of the world, want to do everything that you can to interact with it, because you know you can get good items, and then those good items then become character abilities, and then those character abilities feed into combat, and then that combat feeds into getting more items, etc., etc. And so you can see there is a gameplay loop in place that keeps you playing and keeps you excited for all the discoveries, right? It encourages exploration, it encourages fights. And in the case of Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X has wonderful itemization because you can find spheres, you can find potions and all the other typical FF trappings, and then the ways in which you can use those items, right? You can use those items to create new abilities for your armor and weapons. You can use those items to level your summons. You can do all those things. YouTuber Dan's G08. Actually, I got to meet him in real life earlier in February. He's a great guy. I got to meet him at Final Fantasy Union's Ultimate Pub Quiz, all the way out in London. It was a fantastic time, and he's a really cool guy. So actually, yeah, I was actually thinking of reaching out to him actually to see if there is anything that I should include. Came here for Final Fantasy XVI PC port discussion. I don't have a PS5, so I spent a year so far dodging spoilers for FF16 and Rebirth. Oh, okay, cool. Then we got some good news for you today. I don't think you're going to have to wait much longer for the FF16 port. I think it could actually be as little as weeks away. They should honestly make item mixing a regular thing going forward without it being exclusive to any character. I think it has to be exclusive to a character. But well, maybe not. Actually, no, I do think it has to be exclusive to a character, because if you don't make it exclusive to a character, then it can be like busted, right? Like you can get really unbalanced. Because if anyone could just do trio of 9/9s, for example, it could probably break the game. So I do think maybe you have to limit it to one character, unless you like kind of nerf the potency of what you could do, because otherwise you might just be able to just straight mix the entire combat. He doesn't even watch the chat on YouTube, is he? I do watch the chat on YouTube. What are you talking about? I watch both chats. I do think the, ironically though, Twitch chat is a little bit more active, but I watch both. This is why actually both chats are available right here. Giving SP a break reading is hard. It is hard, but yes, I do watch both chats actively, I may add. I'm a big chat watcher. Thank you. But I mean, I have both lined up in front of me. Anyway, that's FF7's problem. Everyone could be the same class. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's also a criticism of 10 as well, right? That ultimately everyone ends up being the exact same once you max out everything. And that's fair, right? My only pushback on that would just be that, like, at least in the case of Final Fantasy X, in the case of 10, you know, for the vast majority of the experience, that won't be true until you reach the deep end game, which, you know, a lot of players don't interact with, which I know is not like the best pushback on that. But at the same time, it does bear a little bit of truth. You know, most people are just kind of complete the main story and they don't really go on to do the super bosses and stuff like that. And even still, it doesn't really like, it doesn't hinder you from doing those things. So fingers crossed that the Final Fantasy XVI port will at least be playable on Steam Deck. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it will not be playable on Steam Deck. I have good feeling that it probably won't, which I think will really suck though. Am I going to play the FF16 PC port? Yeah, I'll play it. If they send me a code, I'll play anything. So yeah, if I am treated to a code, then I will play the FF16 PC port. In particular, I'm looking forward to the FF16 PC port to maybe mod some stuff that kind of was not my favorite thing about the game. So I think it'd be cool if, for example, Ultimaniac could be like a difficulty mode that you could play through, rather than like just like a thing. Would you play Raid Shadow Legends if they sent you a code? No. No. I have to respect my time in some way. Okay. So let's get into it. Let's talk some news. Tencent and Square Enix are reportedly working on a mobile version of Final Fantasy XIV. Now, you may recall a couple weeks back, I did a video on this. When I did a video on this, it was just a rumor that Final Fantasy XIV Mobile was in development. At the time, we were just told that it was a port of Final Fantasy XIV that was coming to mobile. I thought that this was just going to be like FF14 that you could literally play on your iPhone. which was not going to be the best thing imaginable. No, it was gonna kind of maybe not be the best thing ever. Because yeah, playing the game on mobile was, I mean, just sounds like a terrible hot mess, because there is so much UI. There is just so much, going on in the game. Just doing your rotation seems like an absolute nightmare. There's just so many issues that you can come up with in terms of like putting FF14 on mobile that sounds like a terrible idea. However, what has surprised me, and I'm very thankful to hear, is that this is not just FF14 on mobile. This is going to be its own version of Final Fantasy XIV specifically for mobile. So it's not going to be like, I can go and do my dailies on my fucking like iPhone 6. It's not going to be that situation. It's not going to be that situation. So this is going to be a separate, independent version of Final Fantasy XIV that is exclusively mobile. And it's going to have, pretty much, like, to my understanding, it has like its own mechanics and its own gameplay and stuff like that, separate from the main 14, which is very, very, very interesting. That honestly makes sense. Yeah, and what I think too is that they're going to be able to reuse the assets from the PC version. So the levels, the character models, story stuff, voice work, all that stuff, I imagine will carry over. So it'll probably be like the same story, I would think, in the same world and stuff. But they'll have like its own combat and its own stuff separate from the main 14. That's what I think, but we don't know. So I'll just read the article for you guys and we'll get into it. How do you put 10 years worth of MMORPG like Final Fantasy XIV into a mobile version? We could all be seeing the answers to the question in the coming months, as new reports confirm that a mobile Eorzea is in the works, though it looks to be a game that's only being released in China. I don't think that it's only going to stay in China, because again, the main 14 is in China. Persona 5 X was also announced as like a China exclusive game. And wouldn't you know it, that game has also come over here, or is coming over here to the West, and it's coming to Japan. So I don't think this is a China only game, but guys, the market in China is massive and they want to capture that market. The existence of this mobile version of Final Fantasy XIV was first shared in a report from Nico Partners, which runs down a list of games that have passed Chinese government approval. One of these titles is a mobile game based on Final Fantasy XIV that is being developed by Tencent and Square Enix. Additionally, information was further provided by Nico Partners' Director of Research Daniel Ahmed, who tweeted his belief that the game is expected to be a standalone MMORPG separate from the PC game, though he does admit that presumption is mostly industry chatter without confirmation, without any official confirmation. So that means there is some possibility that this could just straight up be like an Android iOS port of Final Fantasy XIV. However, I kind of lean closer to what Daniel Ahmed is saying, that this is probably going to be its own standalone MMORPG. At the very, very least, this will be like a mobile port that has its own separate servers with its own kind of gameplay mapping to a touchscreen. I'm just trying to imagine the existing Final Fantasy XIV playing on a touchscreen. It's really difficult for me to do. I don't know how you would do it. There are so many hotkeys. it would just be like an absolute mess. And then also too, you know, are people going to pay a sub fee for it? So what would this look like? A gotcha version of FF14 or a FF14 on offline? It wouldn't be offline because, I mean, most mobile games are not offline. They're like, you know, constantly connected to the internet, which is, you know, one of the worst aspects of mobile games by far. It like not even close. However, I mean, you know, with it being a mobile game instead, like it's really hard for me to imagine. And maybe there is stuff out there, especially in China. It's hard for me to say because, you know, I'm living here in the US, but like maybe there are mobile games out there in China that people are playing, and those mobile games don't have subscription fees, or they do have subscription fees to them and people are paying a subscription fee. But for me personally, it's really hard to imagine paying a sub for a mobile MMO, right? Those tend to be more gacha driven. And also too, Final Fantasy 14 is a game that costs $40, you know. I think, how much does Final Fantasy 14 cost for like the ultimate collectors, or not ultimate collectors, but the full game and expansions? I think it's 60, right? So it's a $60 game to get the complete edition, and then each expansion is $40. It's really hard for me to imagine, you know, a $60 game, $40 expansions, and a sub fee model working on a mobile game. I would imagine it would be downloadable and then have a subscription model, since that's a format that some apps are already utilizing. That's true. Maybe I'm wrong there. You're right, because there are, you know, quite a few apps that do have a subscription model. I just wonder the price difference on the subscription due to companies like Apple and their strict rules on their app partners. That's another thing too, right? Is that Apple is going to want 30%. Google Play also, I think, wants like 30%. And so that would definitely cut into like their normal sub fees. But yeah, I mean, I imagine that the monetization on this thing is going to be a lot different than the monetization that we see on the main Final Fantasy 14, which doesn't have the same restrictions that you'd expect from a mobile game. And, you know, to even push a mobile game like this in the first place, you know, normally that free icon is what makes it work. So maybe it will be free to download and it'll have a trial, you know, like the current game does, and you can play up the Stormblood or Heaven's Word or something alike like that. But it's just really difficult for me to imagine, you know, FF14 a mobile working in the first place, and two, working in such a way that it uses the standard model that the current Final Fantasy 14 uses. But yeah, this is all we know so far, and that's Daniel Ahmed's like approximation that it's going to be, you know, a game with its own mechanics that are separate from the rest. Let me see if he said anything else on the Twitter. He says, I believe this is the first official confirmation of a Final Fantasy XIV mobile game. The title is being developed by Tencent Lightspeed Studios and Square Enix. It's expected to be a standalone MMORPG separate from the PC game. Let's see if we can find these guys and what they do. Let's go to their website. Okay. There's a bunch of stuff here. I know it's kind of awkwardly zoomed out. They work on PUBG Mobile. And what else do they work on? They don't even have like a, I guess, accept all cookies. They don't even have like a portfolio thing. Like, where do I see all the games that they've worked on? I don't know. I just want a list of games that they've worked on, but it seems like PUBG Mobile is one of them. I mean, it seems like that's like their main thing, because it's like you go here even to their Twitter account, and like the first thing that's recommended is, or the first thing that they have in their bio is PUBG Mobile. Let's click on their YouTube account and see what's going on. You really don't know. They don't really say much at all. That kind of is telling to me, though. What that tells me is that they probably co-develop a lot of things, and they probably don't work on that much directly. Square Enix works with a lot of studios that do stuff like this, so it's not too surprising. What was the name of the company that worked on Crisis Core Union? I forgot. But yeah, they do stuff like this a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's the situation with FF14 Mobile. PS02 Phantasy Star Online 2 has a distilled gameplay that resembles the PC game, but much simpler control and movement. But we sync character and glam. Oh yeah, I mean, that would be cool, right? Like, that would be like what I want from it. Is like, oh, I can log in. Tosei, yes, that's the name of the company that did Reunion. That would be an example of kind of like a, what do you call it, like a shadow developer? I can't remember the proper term for it, but it's like these outsourced contract developers that they use to mostly develop the game for them. And yeah, sometimes you barely even see them mentioned, so it's not like a huge collaborative deal like you would see, like, for example, with like Nier Automata, right? Like, it's Square X Platinum. Like, that's the big deal with that. Yeah, here you never really see outsourced studios, like, really. I mean, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It just really depends on kind of the size of the studio and what they're used for. A ghost developer, yeah, I think that's the term I was looking for. Because I'm not just referring to like standard outsourcing. We all know about that. I'm referring to like, yeah, specifically like a ghost developer where they're not like part of like the marketing or anything. Like, they just literally kind of like develop in the background, in the shadows, and you see the fruits of their labor, but they're not really like they're not really part of the team. So to speak. Okay, also too, for the person in chat that said they've been waiting for this shit, it's happening. Oh, let me find it before I pull it up. Da-dun. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but you have the number 92 in it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Also, too, I wanted to say something to E.T. Homer. I meant to read your comment before I got into that rant there. NSP, just getting in. It was great to see you relive 10. I found a well-translated version of 10 2.5 that I'm reading, and I don't think it's nearly as bad as fans have been saying. The lore is definitely interesting. The story quickly shows the pressure and expectations that Yuta constantly deals with as the High Summoner. Oh man, I might need you to send me that then. Lighting manga, I'm reading 10 2.5 right now. It's not as bad as we were told. They could set something good up for a 10.3 if and when they do it. Okay, I may need you to send me that, because maybe we'll read that out and we'll figure. I don't know. Anyway, let's dive into this right here. So I'll read the article for you guys. So Final Fantasy XVI PC release could be imminent. A recent NVIDIA driver may have prematurely revealed that Final Fantasy XVI is set to launch on PC imminently. Although it's been common knowledge for some time that developer Square Enix is working on a PC port of Final Fantasy XVI, its exact release window has been up in the air. Final Fantasy XVI originally launched in June 2023 as a timed PlayStation 5 exclusive. The highly anticipated JRPG accrued mostly positive reviews and impressed many fans with its high caliber graphics and kaiju-esque icon battles. The good news kept on coming with its commercial performance too, as Final Fantasy XVI achieved the highest sales debut for a PS5 game in Japan, and went on to sell 3 million units worldwide. There was some consternation. I don't know the meaning of that word, but I think the context clues tell me that it was, there was some discussion, there was some discourse over Final Fantasy XVI's total sales numbers, as Square Enix reported losses in the following quarter, but the company claims it is satisfied with the game. Back in September 2023, Square Enix confirmed that Final Fantasy XVI's PC version was in development, but didn't commit to a release window at the time. It was widely assumed that the game would land on PC sometime after June 2024 due to the PS5 exclusivity agreement. And now that that's over, it seems the PC release of Final Fantasy XVI could happen imminently. Reddit user MWH recently discovered a game-ready driver profile for Final Fantasy XVI in NVIDIA's latest 560.81 GPU driver update. These optimizations are usually carried out when a game is ready to go, which suggests that Final Fantasy XVI's PC release is very near. So the Reddit page here says, latest PC driver update has hidden optimizations for FF16. This comment is unofficial. I'm not an NVIDIA employee, just a fellow Redditor helping r/NVIDIA community by tracking issues and collating information / troubleshooting. We'll keep comment updated like I did with previous driver. Edit section and footer can be used to track additions and updates. 56.81 has game-ready driver profiles for Final Fantasy XVI and once human, not in the official driver release notes. Interesting. So it's in the driver, but they didn't actually put it in the notes. So they've already pushed the update, and I imagine that the update that makes it visible so that you can actually see, they have the driver profile ready for Final Fantasy XVI will become available with the next update, which is good. This also means that the game has basically already been tested on PC, and it's probably already I'm willing to bet that the thing is already uploaded to Steam. It probably already has a Steam page. It is, this is something that I imagine being weeks away, and not many weeks. I would say that this is maybe maybe no more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the most. That would be my estimate. Because once this happens, the game is pretty much ready. It's ready to go. As a matter of fact, is there any gaming event that's coming up that it could potentially be announced at? Gamescom? When is Gamescom happening? Hold on. Let me see. Oh my God, dude, that would actually work. Gamescom is happening on the 21st through the 24th. So Gamescom might actually be a reasonable place for this to be shadow dropped. TGS, Tokyo Game Show, is also another one too. Yeah, Tokyo Game Show or Gamescom. That checks. That totally checks. So I'm willing to bet it's going to be one of those. Tokyo Game Show in September, right? And Square Enix is going to be at both. So it is either going to be on one or the other. Okay, thank you for the book there. I appreciate that. I'll take a look at that later. So yeah, the PC port is definitely in the works. We already kind of knew that from Yoshi P confirming it all the way back during I can't even remember what that event was. It was something way early this year, I want to say. And Brian Howard, thank you so much. But yeah, it was confirmed earlier this year. And but yeah, it's coming like soon. I would not say that it's going to be like, I would say September or sooner, right? Because again, this is like a final stage type thing. This isn't something that you do when something is coming like in like 4 or 5 more months. This is something that happens when a game is about to drop on PC. So it's pretty close. Even though Square Enix was bound by the PS5 timed exclusivity contract, Final Fantasy XVI's developers have been quite open about the PC port's progress. Producer Naoki Yoshida confirmed that Final Fantasy XVI's PC version was in the final stages of optimization back in March 2024. Yeah, exactly, right? And now we're sitting here 5 months later, and it was in the final, stages of optimization back then. It only makes sense to me that this is coming extremely soon. It then continues, so it doesn't come as much of a surprise that it would be ready for release by now. Yoshida has also revealed that a playable demo of Final Fantasy XVI on PC is in the planning stages, but with the entire PC port nearly finished already, Square may just opt to launch the game outright. That's also true. I mean, I think that they're still going to launch the demo. I just don't know if they'll launch the demo ahead of the game's release itself, right? I think the demo is still going to be a thing so that people can run this game on their PC. I think that running this game on their PC is like really important, because I think this game is going to be a game that really pushes PC to the edge, no pun intended. Ivy Evie, thank you so much, appreciate it. I think they were working on the PC port alongside the PS5 version since 2020 on that Awakening trailer. No, I agree. I think the PC port of Final Fantasy 16 has been cooking since like the start. Like, I don't think that it's like, oh, Sony exclusivity contract is up, what do you guys want to do, right? And they accidentally leaked that they were working on the PC port back then, I think, too, because they originally had like a little label that said for PC and PS5, right? Do you guys remember that? Like at the bottom of the trailer, it said for PC and PS5, and they later had to come out and say, no. It's not for PC. It's only on PS5. It's only on PS5. Forget that you saw anything about PC. Erase it from your brain. So they were working on the PC version way back then. Like, I think this game was like simultaneously in development for PC and PS5, and all they've been doing, the past few months or the past year has just basically been polishing the PC version to make sure it runs the best that it possibly can. They hold the announcement for the exclusivity. Yeah. I think maybe like, and it's entirely possible too that like maybe the exclusivity like at one point allowed for them to publish a PC version, right? Because that PC and PS5 is really curious. How did that get there? Right? That's official stuff. So I'm really wondering how the person who edited the trailer, and trailers are reviewed multiple times, right? Trailers are reviewed multiple times and at multiple levels for approval. So I'm really wondering how a text on screen that said for PC and PS5 got into the Awakening trailer, right? There's a lot of speculation you can have with that alone. Like, did Sony originally allow for this game to be available on PC as well? Right? That's something to also think about. I'll tell you one thing with the Sony exclusivity contracts. I think going forward, because I mean, a lot of people. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it. I don't think Xbox is the delta for like Final Fantasy sales. Like, I do not think that if you're putting this game on Xbox, it's going to suddenly like sell 1 trillion more copies. I don't even think the Xbox versions of these games would significantly contribute. I could be wrong, but I don't see anything when looking at like previous, Xbox ports of FF games to really think Xbox is going to like tremendously move the needle for Final Fantasy games, right? Not when the core audience for this type of game is on PlayStation, right? It's just really hard for me to imagine. When we talk about multi-platform for Final Fantasy, yeah, I'm thinking about Switch 2 and I'm thinking about Steam, right? Like I'm just bluntly honest, and it's no offense to Xbox or anyone who prefers gaming on Xbox, or you guys know I don't give a shit about console wars. I think that, all three console manufacturers are just big corporations, and, glazing big corporations doesn't do anything for me. Doesn't do anything for you. And yeah, unless if one of them wants to send me a check, I will glaze them. Absolutely, you can pay me to do that. But until you're paying me to do that, I'm not doing it. And quite frankly, yeah, I'm not gonna play into the console war stuff. But just objectively speaking, it's just really hard to imagine Xbox in any tremendous way moving the needle for these games. Now, that being said, I do think these games are going to come to Xbox. I don't think it's going to come like when the PC version comes. I think at a later point it'll come to Xbox. I think it'll roll out to Xbox in the same way that these games rolled out to, a great game that would be like a good comparison for it would be Nier, right? Because Nier Automata was PS4 and PC first, and then it got like an Xbox port, and then it eventually came to Nintendo Switch, right? I think that Square has been fucking up by not putting it on PC day one, bluntly speaking. I think that has been like objectively their biggest L, is not putting it on PC. I think that these games should be on PC day one. For me, when we talk about multi-platform, that's like specifically what I mean. Almost like specifically what I mean. And to another extent, I also mean putting these games on Switch 2 potentially, if possible. I wouldn't push that too much. I do think it'd be great if all these games could run on Switch. It's not as readily possible on the current Switch for sure, because as you may have seen a Switch game before, they run like ass. And even when we talk about a great Switch port, we're really just talking about a game that doesn't run so bad that that it's just like it completely doesn't function. So yeah. I mean, we're not talking about like actually runs great, like in the way that we think of it in a modern sense. Anyway, let's see. Additionally, Yoshi P confirmed features like ultra-wide support and unlocked frame rates over 100 frames per second, dedicated mouse and keyboard controls, revamped code for better performance, and more, all of which should make the pre-C port of Final Fantasy XV pretty... Actually, did he really confirm that? I don't remember him confirming ultra-wide. When did he confirm that? If it does have ultra-wide, I'll be happy. I'm an ultra-wide guy myself. That sounds funny to say. I'm a big fan of ultra-wide. I do like playing games in 21:9. If you guys ever get an ultra-wide monitor and you get a decent graphics card, I promise you will never turn on your console again, because you will be so PC pilled that you'll just be like, nope, not doing consoles anymore. That has been like the experience for me, especially after I got like this super nice LG Ultra Gear. I got a 4070 Ti Super, yeah. So I'm pretty sure. And speaking of like PC ports and too, I want to say, let me see if I can actually find it. Someone told me that Capcom's most profitable platform is PC. if anyone can find anything related to that, or if anyone has, or if you're a Capcom head, if you can look that up real quick and verify if that's the truth or not. But from what I know, or from what I remember hearing, is that PC is Capcom's most profitable platform, which means that a lot of people play Resident Evil on PC, which is very interesting to hear. And it's also why RE Engine runs so well on PC. Monster Hunter is their best-selling game, right? But a lot of people, Monster Hunter World, yeah, a lot of people play Monster Hunter World. I think it was in an interview. I think it was Game Informer. Oh, fuck. That sucks, dude. Holy shit. Sounds like Cap, but got no sources. Yeah. I don't even know. Let me see something real quick. What is this? Let me see if I can find that as a source. Okay, I put it in the chat GPT and they were able to find a source for it. So let me see. Okay, hold on. Because I asked ChatGPT what is Capcom's most profitable platform, and then it searched the internet and it said PC is their most profitable platform. So I'm definitely not making that up because it also identified PC as their most profitable platform. I'm just trying to find an article on it that says it explicitly, so that it's not just conjecture. Oh, this one's interesting. I mean, this one's older, but I found this one. The Capcom wants PC to be their main platform, aiming for 50% of sales by 2022 to 2023. Traditionally, Japanese game developers have been wary of PC development, preferring instead to focus on consoles, with Capcom being a prime example of the phenomenon. For years, games simply didn't come out on PC, and then there was a period where the publisher gained a reputation for lousy PC ports, with classics like Resident Evil 4 and Devil May Cry 3 being all but ruined on computers. That's so true. Thankfully, in recent years, Capcom has gotten their acts together, with PC games like Monster Hunter World and Devil May Cry 5 getting respectable PC versions. Yeah, you know what? Like fucking Square Enix. Like, hello, Square Enix. Like, hello. Like, holy crap, dude. Like, you know, like we're still complaining about like Square Enix PC ports. And like, I forgot all about that. But that's so true that Capcom used to have like the most ass PC ports ever. And now I think of Capcom as like a gold standard for like PC ports. Like, you know, Capcom games on really well on PC. It says, well, it seems like Capcom has much larger ambitions for PC, according to a Nikkei interview with Capcom COO Haruhiro Sugimoto. The company has plans to make PC their primary platform going forward, in hopes to achieve a 50-50 split between PC and consoles by 2022 or 2023. So that was their plan back in 2022 to 2023. Again, from like what I've heard, they've already achieved that. So PC is like already their most profitable platform from what I know. And I'm trying to find the statement where I've seen that they already hit that target. But yeah, even that, they've already realized that PC has kind of like, you know, taken over. Oh, that one's also from 2021, saying that they want PC to be their main platform. Capcom aims to have 50% of its sales on PC and 50% on consoles. Yeah. I'll have to ask someone like Susie to verify that they've achieved that target, but from what I had heard, they have, and PC is like their most profitable platform. So all of this is to say, the only point that I'm trying to make here is Square Enix needs to make 1, good PC ports, and 2, PC ports that are not like 18 months later. Yeah, and I think someone said, Lightning Magna said that they think that that was like a Game Informer article that explicitly highlighted it. And rest in peace, Game Informer. Game Informer gone is really sad. I remember the first time I saw a Game Informer magazine was the friend who got me into FF. It was the coolest magazine I'd ever seen. Game Informer was awesome, bro. It's so sad to see what happened to them. PC makes sense from an economic standpoint because it's a lot easier to rationalize upgrading an existing item you have versus getting a new console. Yeah, I mean, and that's the point that like people just don't understand, right? Like, I have like the computer that I'm using right now is like 7 years old, and I put like a brand new graphics card in it, and now it outperforms my PS5 by like not a slim margin at all. It greatly outperforms my PS5 in like an incredible. I can play Ghost of Tsushima PC 21:9, 3,444 pixels by 1440 at 240 hertz locked, my guy. On maximum graphics. And yeah, like a PS5 can do that. Like it can do like maybe medium high graphics at like 60, and it definitely can't do ultra wide, and it can't do like half the other things that so I mean, I've always thought that PCs just economically make the most sense, right? And also by upgrading my PC, I upgraded my workstation too, so I have a better workstation. PCs just always seem like a logical investment to me. But I think also too, here's the alternative of that too, because a lot of people kind of get tricked into thinking that you need the latest PC. Well, before I had this 4070 Ti Super, I had a 1080 Ti. Which was a good graphics card when it first came out. It was the best on the market when it first came out. But that 1080 Ti played all the latest games for 7 years at relatively good settings. A lot of the times, those settings being better than PS5s or on par. And it did it at 60 frames per second, and certainly better because it was a card that existed when PS4 was out, and PS5 hadn't even launched yet. It was a 2017 card, so that card was pre PS5, and that card outperformed PS4 by many miles, and it performed at least evenly or better depending on the game. Than a PS5, and so you don't actually need the latest graphics card, right? Like a Steam Deck has the equivalent of a 1060 in it, right? But it still runs actually most of the latest games scaled down, and so if a 1060 came out, and when 1060 come out. 1060 came out in like, yeah, the 1060 came out in 2016. 8-year-old graphics card that the Steam Deck is based on, and yeah, it runs all the latest games. You can run Baldur's Gate 3 on the Steam Deck, which is based on a 1060. So a super dated graphics card can still run these games. And that's what people just don't get, is that people will say, well, the average person still has like a 1660 in their PC. I'm like, bro, what you're not realizing is that a 1660 is still running games. That's why the average person still has a 1660, right? Like, it's still running games at decent enough playable frame rates and resolutions. Like, that's why people are still using it. It may not be the most glamorous experience, it certainly isn't, but it's still working, right? And so just the idea that you have to like buy, like you have to invest, you know, like $1,000 into like a graphics. You really don't. You can do like 200 or 300 honestly, and get a card that'll play all of this, and they'll play it all for years and years and years. You can run most games on old PCs just fine. Yeah, exactly. You may not achieve like, and those older cards, like anything like below a 2060, because a PS5 is based on an RTX 2060, and so you may not play it at the same fidelity, but like if you want to be cheap, like if you have a recent PC, it will run most games unless you have like an integrated graphics card, because that thing won't do shit. But if you have a recent PC, it will probably run the game you want it to run. And so PCs are, from that standpoint, PCs are actually cheaper than, or can be cheaper than their console counterparts, purely predicated on the idea that if you already own an existing PC, you know, that it's probably already going to be cheaper in that way, and you can probably upgrade that PC. You can almost always throw another cheap graphics card into it. PS5 is a low-level, mid-level PC. Yeah, exactly. Like you can always buy a $200 or $300 graphics card that will run the latest games, right? Like you can buy a 4060 really for like $300 or $400, and that will run every game on the market right now at 60 or more frames. And even that may not even be necessary, right? Like you can buy a 2060 and it'll also run all the latest games probably at 60 frames per second, probably on ultra. So yeah. So anyway, I hope that the PC port of Final Fantasy 16 is good. It's coming soon. Mods are also going to be a very big thing for the PC port of 16. Now, here is the thing. I do want to replay 16 on PC. There's a couple of reasons I want to try it again, and specifically want to try it again on PC. One, playing an action-heavy game like 16 and being limited to 30 frames per second because the frame pacing was really bad whenever you tried to play the game outside of the graphics mode, and then having to choose between sacrificing the graphics mode and the frame rate really sucked. So this is a game that I'm going to be able to play again at 60 frames at 1440p. I mean, I'm going to be able to play it at more than 60 frames. This is a 240 hertz monitor, and I have a very good graphics card, so I'm going to probably be playing it at like 120 frames. So that's going to be good. The other reason that replaying it on PC will be something that kind of entices me is that there is a very good chance that somebody is going to figure out a way to turn off the purple sky. That's also very, very important to me. I cannot express to you how much I hated the purple sky. And I get it. It's supposed to symbolize the end times. It's supposed to give you that JRPG, the world is coming to an end feeling. It is ugly and it ruins the visuals of the game. It is something that should not exist in New Game Plus whatsoever. It is something that happens too early in the story, and it is just the most hideous thing. I absolutely cannot stand the purple sky thing ever. Can they mod in Jill for a bigger role? Can they mod it in a bigger role for Jill asking for a friend? Modding playable characters into a thing is really hard to do. I don't think they would be able to do it. It's also worth noting that Final Fantasy XVI uses a proprietary engine, so it's not Unreal Engine. The problem is that with proprietary engines, it's not as well known how to reverse engineer them, right? So when an Unreal Engine game comes out, we immediately know how to reverse engineer that game. Like, we immediately know because there's a million Unreal Engine games. Unreal Engine is also open source, so we know exactly how to mod it. It's really easy most of the times to do model swaps and even change behavior of certain things. We can do it. Look at some of the modding for Kingdom Hearts 3, which is really amazing. Modding Final Fantasy 16, we can probably do model swaps. Yeah, we can probably do those fairly easy, but changing the behavior of the game in any way probably will be like, oops, shit. Probably won't be the most feasible thing. Don't look at my dirty ass desk, chat. That has too much shit on it. There's a reason I crop it out. Got a lightning cable hanging out for the. Anyway, yeah, Yoshi P did say if the PC port was successful, he might make Sid and Jill playable characters. So there's always hope. There is always hope. That's another thing that would entice me to play the PC port of the game. If Jill became a playable character, say less. I'm playing it immediately. The other reason that I really wanted to try playing the PC port of the game is because one of the things that really negatively impacted my playthrough of Final Fantasy 16, and this is going to be controversial, I'm going to catch a lot of hate in chat. I hated the side quests in the game. There was a couple of them where were good. I teared up, damn near cried on the Torgal side quest. That one was the peak for me. A lot of the side quests have really good stories in them for the world. However, doing those side quests was boring and laborious as fuck. I hated every second of it. I'm sorry. It's the truth. I would not touch those side quests again ever in my life. It could be a replay through 20 years later. I would not want to do those side quests again. I just did not enjoy them. I know. Go ahead and hate on me, Night Sky Fraud. I know some of you like really defend the side quests in that game. It was nope. So I want to see how much I enjoy the game actually by skipping all the side quests. I think I would actually enjoy the game tremendously more if I was just playing straight through the game like a real hack and slash versus trying to play it like an RPG. Because I think if you try to play it like an RPG, it's like it's not going to like really be that good. Side quest had great lore, but the presentation is quite low. Right. The lore in the side quest is great. I agree. And yeah, the presentation was also like, the presentations are, it's just, yeah. Now, most of the side quests in 14 are also boring as fuck. The finales of 16 side quests were good. No, I agree, actually. No pushback there, Black Lion Guard. Like 100%. That's still true. That the ones in 14 are, yeah. But I mean, like, you know, with 14 you have different jobs and stuff to level, and so at least you're just kind of like powering through it. But like in like 16, most of the side quests are just you know. And at least the ones in 14 unlock stuff too, right? So there are ones that unlock different things, but like, and then the ones that unlock stuff in 16 just make the game easier. Like, I don't want more potions to use in the game. A game that like already like restocked my potions when I died. The hot take with the side quests and FF games in general are terrible. I want optional exploration and let's be real. Like the side content in Final Fantasy games have never been like award winning, but I do think that the ones in 16 for me were probably like the lowest point that it's been. I think Rebirth side quests are really good. Yeah, actually, I would go as far as to say that Rebirth side quests are probably like the highest point of the series for me for side content. I think I really enjoyed Rebirth. That there's a caveat there. That's not to say that every single Rebirth side quest is a banger, or that every piece of side content with Rebirth is like incredible, because a lot of Rebirth side content is not good. But Rebirth, I mean, Queen's Blood alone, right? Like Queen's Blood alone as a piece of side content, that could have been the only side content in the whole game, and that would have been really good, right? Like, I think that, yeah, there's a bit of low quality stuff in Rebirth in terms of side content, but I think the overwhelming amount of good stuff that's in Rebirth side content outweighs the amount of like lackluster stuff. So I do think that Rebirth side content is probably an example for me of the best side content. And I could say that just predicated on Queen's Blood. Like, we could just have Queen's Blood alone, and that could be the justification for my argument. It's just that one mini game. That's so good. But yeah, I can't think of any game, FF or otherwise, where I enjoyed side quests less. And I understand that those side quests did have good stories and good lore behind them, in the end, at least. But once you've done them once, there is never a reason that you'd want to do them again, right? Like, there's no content in there that you would ever want to be like, oh, I really want to go back and do like the other stuff, right? And a little surprise story in Queen's Blood was pretty juicy, yeah. The problem is doing them when you don't enjoy the game you're playing. For me, Rebirth side quests are far worse because I hate mini games. But recently, I played Rebirth main quest only, and it was bet. I don't know what you mean by that. It was better, I guess. Yeah. I'm thinking that's what would help me with 16, is to just not do any of the side content, because I just don't find any of it fulfilling other than the Torgal side content, which the Torgal quest made me cry, and I will defend that side quest with my life. But yeah, the rest of the side content in the game just oof. One of my pet peeves with 16 were the transitions in the middle of scenes where the camera would pan up and back down for 15 to 20 seconds in order to barely advance the dialogue, right? Yeah. Yeah. I found a good chunk of, a lot of the side content you could do in Rebirth to be really fun. And I also don't feel like you're missing anything by not doing side content in Rebirth. Or I should say like, yeah, you're not like missing like major story stuff that like would really impact the lore or the experience by doing it. So I don't think that you have to have like mini games though, just for the sake of side quests or gameplay variety. I think that one of the things that you can do to supplement that is to have to use the battle system in different ways. So Kingdom Hearts 2 does this, where in Kingdom Hearts 2 you don't have any mini games. Well, you do. You have Atlantis and Winnie the Pooh, but I mean, like, you don't have any mini games in the main story for the most part. But instead of having like traditional mini games, they engage you in the battle system differently. So they'll have like a time attack type thing, or like a boss fight with like a unique objective rather than just killing the enemy or doing something like that. Yeah, and that's the way they present that kind of variety in there. But yeah. I believe FF16 should have ditched the side quest and used that money to add a couple of mini games and environmental puzzles. Yeah, environmental puzzles would have helped the game a lot. If the game had environmental puzzles, it would have helped the pacing a lot, because there would then be something that you could do that wasn't a cutscene or fighting, right? Because that's kind of the only way that the game can currently engage you with the way it works now. And the problem with the fighting is that there's never a situation where enemies ever require anything that isn't the standard thing that you use throughout the game, which is fine if you always are like, if you're always really into just expressing yourself and comboing, and like that is like all you ever like want to play that type of game for, that's fine. But yeah, but for anyone who's not strictly looking for that type of thing, yeah, I think 16 shouldn't remove anything. They just needed more variety, and people think it's too much could just skip and feel fine. Not like, yeah, that's also another thing too. Yeah, fishing would have been cool too. But again, it kind of goes back to itemization too. Like when we were talking about itemization earlier, with exploration and stuff, or like doing puzzles or anything like that, there's nothing that they could actually reward you with in that game, right? What can they give you in the game? And you can't make up a new item or anything like that. Like, what can they give you in that game that is of extreme value other than crafting materials, right? Like, that's the only thing you can actually find in the game. And those crafting materials are pretty much strictly used to get a better sword. And then that's it. So you can't really find anything of use. And because you can't find anything of use, there is never like a point where you're like, oh, I need to go see if that thing is like useful, like if there's anything over there, because the side quests are marked on the map, and there's no items, there's no, no type of materia type thing, no type of sphere, no junction point that you can get. So the result is kind of, you just have like the big world with monsters in them. And yeah, icon abilities, yeah, I mean, that would have been cool too. I think that there should have been abilities that weren't attached to icons. I think that would have helped a lot. And if you could find those abilities throughout the world, that would have been cool. But again, that would like, that would make it no longer hack and slash in the way that people want it to be, like in a super ultra balanced hack and slash way. But like, the problem is that people just wanted it to be an RPG, right? And then they're getting hack and slash. But I think you'd have to change the game systems even deeper in order to do that. Can they mod elements at this point for 16? I don't think so. And if they could, you wouldn't want it. The reason I don't think it's possible is because it's a proprietary engine, and as a proprietary engine, reverse engineering that would be pretty hard. Even making that work in Unreal Engine and with going through all the enemies in the game to implement it would already be a challenge. So I don't think it'd be possible. But also too, with elements, the game is designed in such a way that elementals would actually make the game worse if you put it in, because it's not designed for it, and so it doesn't have that balancing in mind. And so it would either make enemies already easier than they are, or it would just make it like this complicated mess of things where you were doing chip damage the whole time until you did the element. And then there's the fact that you don't have all the elements available right away. So yeah, you couldn't like mod that in. In fact, even if you had the source code for the game, you couldn't just like implement it and then like it be like a fun or good experience. It would break the actual balancing. And in order to RPGify 16, you have to like completely redo the whole game. Like there's nothing about it that could be like, oh, we can add a couple of RPG elements to it and it'll be like, the game design it has is fundamentally like not compatible with the type of RPG elements that people want, or that people have like a wish list for. You'd basically need to like change the entire game in order for that to like to functionally work. Like, for example, we talked about this before, like, but if you want to have more playable party members, for example, you couldn't just, even if you could mod in like a switchable character that had all the skill sets and stuff, it wouldn't even make sense, because why would you ever switch characters away from Clive? There is no gameplay reason to actually do that. It would just be purely for novelty, but it wouldn't actually be baked into the game design, right? So like FF7R, for example, there's reasons to switch to other characters, right? But here, like, they're just, you could switch to Jill, but like, what would it do if you did, right? You would need to spread Clive's moveset across other characters, right? And then if you did that, you wouldn't be able to combo the same way that you are now. You would have to like, well, I guess like the one way to make it work would be that if your character teleported to where Clive was and then you switched out, right? So it'd have to be like type 0 character switching, where the characters would like literally swap positions. So Jill would have to hop in exactly where Clive is, and in the middle of combos you could be able to switch over to characters. That would be like, Clive's moveset is so huge it negates the need to, it wouldn't even. So like, all the features that people are asking for simply like don't even fit within the existing game design whatsoever. Like, you have to fundamentally remake the game from the ground up, redesign the game from the ground up in order to actually accommodate most of the things that people are talking about. Right. And then also too, Jill would have to have a different Shiva moveset than the one that Clive has. That would also be really interesting and also kind of laborious to make. I actually think that just a party, and here's the thing too, right? Like, Clive swapping out the icons, I actually think I would have preferred each character just having an icon and then you have to choose like which party members to take in, and they represented the icons, and they could all do different things. I think I would have preferred that over Clive just mastering all the icons, like from a gameplay sense. That for me would have worked out like way better. Like if Jill was like entirely Shiva dedicated and Clive was entirely Ifrit and Phoenix dedicated, that would have been cool. Because there are no elementals, I almost wish you could have been able to use all the icons instead of 4 at a time, but that might have been tough control mechanics. I think the way to do it, but again, you would have to overhaul the way that you combo. But I think it would have been interesting if like you had like, you know, like light and heavy attacks and magic and stuff, and like there was a way to combo trigger those icon abilities, if that makes sense. Oh, Subtext, thank you so much for the tier 1. I appreciate it. Up on my 2-year mark on Twitch. You actually turned me into a 14 nerd in that time. Oh, wow, that's crazy. That means we've been friends for like 2 years now. That's awesome. You switch to Garuda, Clive changes to Benedicta. You mean like if Benedicta was like a party member and like it would like swap over to like Benedicta instead? That would be interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think it would have just been interesting if like the dominants were party members instead, and each one was just a dedicated character for that icon. Nah, just more visual. Oh well, I wouldn't. Just the aesthetic of her. Are you talking about like a mod, or I would need to know the context. Benedicta was an incredible villain, and her VA was even more incredible. I wish she, man, Benedicta was kind of like, Benedicta, like the way she was treated in the story was kind of my first oh no moment with like the story, because I thought she was so good and so interesting, and I thought the story treated her so poorly. It was very, very sad because she dies like so early in. I hated that. I hated that so much. Like I was just like, and then when it happened, I'm just like, this sucks. She was not irredeemable at all, and I found everything about the way they set up her death scenes like to be so lackluster. But she was a great character, and just like the way they treated her was just like I just didn't like it at all personally. I don't think I've met a single person who didn't wish Benedicta was in it longer. I bet the devs wish they did more, but sometimes it's hard to see that until casting. And yeah. Sometimes you don't really get the value of a character until everything actually comes together, right? And yeah. And I think that definitely probably happened with her. I'm pretty sure they probably, like, when they looked at it themselves, they were like, oh, we probably should have kept her around a little bit longer, because she was such a good character. She was so interesting. And I told you guys like about my idea for her, right? Where I actually think a redemption arc for her was actually fairly fitting. Now, I know some people hear that and then they get ready to type their thesis about like how every character doesn't need a redemption arc, blah, 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 blah. But she wasn't irredeemable by any stretch of the imagination. And I feel like her turning a new leaf after Sid's death would have actually made her a better, more interesting character with more potential. And she could have died later on after that point. But I feel like if you would have explored that part of her that would have been far more interesting than what ended up being done with her. She gave off the feelings of someone who felt truly trapped, right? Which is a huge part of like of what made her death feel so unsatisfying, right? Because it didn't really feel like, oh, that was a character who deserved to die. But on the other hand, it didn't really feel like a character who, you know, like, oh my God, that character shouldn't die. It just feels like a character just died in the middle of their arc without resolution, if that makes sense. To the point of where the effectiveness of their death didn't actually get to see any fruition. It never achieved any actual point, right? Like, I mean, you know, she killed an absurd number of people to achieve her terrible ambition. Clive killed an insane, absurd number of people because he thought Joshua was dead and then he wasn't. But you wouldn't say that Clive deserves to die. So consider that, actually. Yeah. Maybe that was the intent. If that was, I mean, it's still not a good intent. Even if you intend to do something, that doesn't make it good because you intended to do it. Like, I could intend to like hit my foot against this desk, but that doesn't mean it's like that's a 4D chess play. So maybe it was intended, but like whether it was intended or not intended, it just didn't click. I don't think the way Benedicta ended in the story was like she chooses to kill, Clive was forced to. Maybe that's fair. Maybe that's fair. Yeah. In either case, I think everyone in that game, everyone in that game killed people. I mean, the main characters of FF7 killed people. How many Shinra grunts died because of Cloud? So, I mean, all video game main protagonists really are mass murderers to a degree. But don't get me wrong, NSP, I agree with you. I would have loved to see more of it. Yeah, that's fair. No, I think you're not wrong. I think like contextually he was forced to kill. So I think you may have a point there. She was basically a slave and emotionally manipulated, right? I mean, yeah, she was also like she was basically manipulated by Barnabas and Ultima, right? So like wasn't she also kind of like, forced to do things or tricked into doing things? Arguably wasn't everyone in that game, right? Because everyone in that game was kind of a victim of Ultima, really. Hugo was a big victim of Ultima's manipulation, so. There's characters who do bad things because they are victims of circumstance. With some characters in this position, they are redeemable, like Benedicta. Others who are pushed so far down the line, like Sephiroth, that regardless of how things started, that individual as a human is gone, right? Yeah. I think... Yeah. So, I mean, that's Drakengard Kaim. I mean, yeah, that's like Yoko Taro's thesis on like on like storytelling, because he's like, if you're the main character of a video game, then like the main character of a video game ends up like killing like thousands, right? If you really think about it. Most of the time, because they're fighting like all these other people. And so you have to think that like at some point, oh, actually the main character of any story, of any video game story, is actually has like a 4-digit body count of some sort. And so yeah, that's why he writes, you know, protagonists that kind of have to be like a little loose in the head, because otherwise, I mean, basically that's to say that he factors that in. Yeah. Every main protagonist kills many bad guys. Yeah, every main protagonist is not a good guy. If you think about it. But like we kind of write it off because we say, well, that's war. So I do enjoy a game where pacifist route is at least an option. You know, actually, it is kind of interesting because it makes me think why pacifist routes are not more of an option in JRPGs. Because they're all about friendship and nonviolence. And so you would actually think that pacifist routes would be more common in JRPGs, but they're actually more common in like Western RPGs. And so I've always thought that that's actually kind of weird if you think about it, right? Like the stories about like, you know, the stories about nonviolence don't have the option for a pacifist route, and then like American culture will sometimes really go crazy on allowing you to have a lot of pacifist routes and avoid combat outright if you don't want to be violent with certain NPCs. I just have always found that like culturally really fascinating, especially when you consider how you know, how much more violent that Western culture can be relatively. But Western RPGs are far worse. Suffering through Baldur's Gate right now, really? Nah, bro. I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm gonna stop you right there with the cap. You capping, bro. It may just be me, but in the game combat, I tend not to count as kill as much since I'm doing them. But in a cutscene where they kill, I'm like, did you need to do that? Yeah, Western RPGs tend to have morality systems, right? I just think, and not to say that JRPGs must incorporate that. I just think that like if a JRPG did incorporate that, it'd be very fascinating, like for a JRPG to have options to avoid certain fights. No joke though, I would love for an FF lead to I would love an FF lead that is unapologetically the rogue, the character archetype that is typically the side character in FF. Think Sid in FF16 and Balthier in FF12. The closest one that comes to mind in the 3D era, I haven't played the old ones, is Zidane. Yeah, that would be interesting. Me and any free will RPG, I'm pacifist until you not allow me to. Right. I think actually in the games that give me the choice to not fight, I'll always choose the non-violence option. Most of the time, I'll always try to resolve things peacefully. Hi, Lian. Hello. What's up, man? Long time no see, bro. Sick hairstyle. Thank you, bro. Hope you've been well. Missed your Final Fantasy X playthrough, but that's primarily because of my new job. Haven't progressed much with my big vid. Cheers. Oh, well, I hope you've been doing great, Highly, and I hope you enjoy your new job. I think you'll like my retrospective thing that I'm working on for Final Fantasy X. I think it's gonna be my first attempt, not my first attempt, but it'll be a rare attempt of mine at a long form video, an essay video. People say that I really thrive in essay content. They say that like that is like consistently where I make my best things. So I think also games should at least make deaths that do happen impactful to the overall storyline. Like Fire Emblem did such a good job on that aspect, even in the older titles. Yeah, I mean, Baldur's Gate also does like a really good job on that too. It's just hard to account for all the different outcomes that can happen. But if you have a game that can, like Baldur's Gate or some of Fire Emblem games, it's really cool when it can work. FF protagonist would be terrifying in person. Stephen King's The Dark Tower is as a Final Fantasy story can get, and the main character is terrifying, does not have the life you would want, right? Yeah, some banger essay videos. Yeah, I mean it's definitely like a thing that I do well, is like have well-defined opinions. The problem is that as I'm writing these well-defined opinions, I just think that like I'm really gonna get my ass beat for this. Like even coming on here and talking about like 16's like side quest or like Benedicta, I'm like, yo, what if they just like beat my ass on Twitter for this? I don't know. FF10 is your favorite non-14 FF? I mean, after replaying it, I don't know. FF10 might be my favorite one overall. I really like FF10. It really gave me a reminder of how much I love FF10. I think 14 like really shines as my favorite, specifically because of Shadowbringers. So I don't know. But yeah, 10 and 14 are ranked really high for me. Just turn the people that want to beat your ass in the content. Yeah. I'll be like Asmongold, and I'll be like, I can't believe that they canceled me for this. And then turn it into like a 15-minute video, and turn into a 15-minute video, and boom, profit. There we go. All I gotta do is lock in, bro. I like this channel because I feel like you give an honest opinion. I appreciate that a lot. I'll be like really honest with you. Like I gotta stop giving honest opinion. I really do. I really have to stop giving them. Scar Zero, thank you so much. The big 100K, man. Congrats. Holy crap. I've been praying for times like this. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh man, that's awesome. No, please keep cooking. Like, no, listen, y'all. Like, you don't understand the cost of like giving honest opinions that aren't like what the general gaming mass necessarily agrees with. Even if you have very well defined reasons for those things, people will just say it's wrong, right? Like, I think the easy thing to do as a content creator is to just give the like scan Twitter basically, or like scan the social media, take the average of opinions, and then just have your opinion be the average of opinions. And yeah, vast majority like the way you are. The rest of the lurkers like me don't say anything. I appreciate that, actually. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, because I think that like a lot of people they I mean, a lot of content creators in general, and that's not to hate, I know that they do that, and that's not to say that it's bad that they do that, by the way, because I think they're a lot more mentally healthy than I am as a consequence of doing that. Because me personally, Um, you know, when they were making me in the baby factory, they were just like, let's actually not put the filter on him that makes him like have the kind of like correct takes that won't get him killed, right? Let's not put the gene on him that filters stuff out so the tribe doesn't turn on him when he has something like, you know, kind of hot to say. And I've gotten beat up for that stuff, but you know, I'm 32 and I don't really give a damn. At this point, I actually kind of find you know, speaking my truths to be of greater value than just, you know, lying about them and that. I'm planning to replay Final Fantasy X, and I'm expecting that I'll warm up to it a lot. It's that interlude between FF Classic and Modern that I was never too crazy about, but I love its music and symbolism. You know, it worked really well for like Mike Hylian, you know, like Mike and Case, and they recently replayed FF10 for their podcast. And if you go back, you know, they were kind of like lukewarm on TID at first, their first playthrough, and then like as they went back and played it as adults, they were like, oh, actually this is like probably a, you know, a top game of all time. Actually, I think you'll walk away and feel the same way. It is the CBU one devs at their absolute best, and it is like a weird transitional period between classic FF and modern FF, as you highlighted. I think what makes Final Fantasy X work to the degree that it does is exactly that. It doesn't like it reconsiders things for a good reason, right? If Final Fantasy X doesn't offer you something worse, basically, in place of like what it's trying to do. It offers you something different and unique and interesting. I'm not sure how to say your name. Ephraim JLM, is that how you say it? Thank you for the Prime sub. Which is why people said Rebirth is the best Final Fantasy since 10. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I did say it right? I nailed it? Awesome. I think that Final Fantasy X was just really unique and interesting in so many different ways. But I don't think that because, you know, it's really funny because Final Fantasy X is honestly not actually like 1 through 9. But when people talk about classic FF, they still include 10. I find that deeply fascinating. I don't think it's just because of the turn-based. I think that it being turn-based is like one of those things that still allows it to be grouped in with the ATB command-driven systems. But I think that ultimately it's because the logo says Squaresoft. I think that's a little bit part of it, but I think ultimately it's just that I think it's just the quality of it that allows it to be lumped in. Like, I think it's really like the story, for example, that's so good. And the story, the world, the characters, the party system. I also think it's really interesting too, because I was watching the making of Final Fantasy X video again. And in it, actually, Kitase had actually said that when they were working on Final Fantasy X, they actually got a lot of requests to make Final Fantasy X medieval. Because he said that a lot of fans, a lot of fans felt like Final Fantasy had gotten away from its roots, which is actually like hilarious, like in hindsight, like considering how people reacted to 16, for example. But yeah, he said that they had actually received a lot of requests for Final Fantasy to go back to being medieval when they were working on 10. I found that like insanely interesting, you know. But he said that they were basically like, nope, we're not going to do it. He's like, I don't want to take it back. I want to like FF to go somewhere different. And Kitase said that they looked at Asian cultures, and yeah, 9 is right there. Yeah, I know. It was a kind of confounding statement considering 9 was so recent. I mean, let me actually just pull it up. I said, let me actually, let's just watch it.
I can totally relate to the way
Oops, hold on. Let me see.
he reacts to things. I tend to react and then go, oh yeah, this is probably what I should do in the situation. So it's kind of how he takes life and takes his life in this game. Well, Tidus and Yuna, I think when they first start off, they're at two completely.
今までその7、8ってこう SF っぽい世界観でやってきたことをその、まあ、例えばユーザーの意見からはそのもっと例えばファンタジーの世界がいいとか例えばいう声があった時にある意味ファンタジーっていうのは中世ヨーロッパ風のっていう部分が僕らなんかよりもどっちかというとユーザーさんの方にそういうなんつうんですかね固定観念みたいなのがあってまあそういうのをちょっとこう変えていきたいなじゃあファンタジーユーザーの方が
Yeah, so he said that like, you know, that people had wanted a sort of simple fantasy world and that he had received like a lot of people saying that. It is kind of funny too because I'm like FF9 like again is like right there. So I did find that like I was kind of like didn't y'all get enough? I mean, yeah, and maybe he's saying that and like because you got to remember FF9 and FF10 like were like a year apart. So I'm actually sure that they did receive those requests during the development of Final Fantasy X. And FF9 ended up being that thing. So, yeah. Fantasian inheriting 10 elements definitely says something. Yeah, because Fantasian... I'd actually go as far as to say that Fantasian probably feels more like FF10 than a lot of the other classic FFs, if anything. Like 10 in particular, for me. The only thing that's not very 10 is that it has a world map, but other than that, like a lot of the combat mechanics and stuff feel a little bit closer to what 10 had in mind.
持ってるファンタジーって概念をもうちょっと広げていこうと変えていこうっていうニュアンスの時にやっぱり中世ヨーロッパ風のファンタジーを僕らがやってても多分それはしょうがないだろうってことで、まあ別の世界観を模索してる時に野島が、ちょっとアジア風のファンタジーを
Can you guys even read these subtitles? Would it work better if I tried auto translate? Nah, it's okay. We'll just
や
leave
って
it.
みたいというような提案をしました。まあやっぱり今回声というのが入ったのが一番大きくて、その生の役者さん、演技をする役者さんが間に入ることによってよりそのなんていうんですかね、ある意味今まで僕らだけが想像で作ってたキャラクターっていうのはその、まあ本当に想像上のキャラクターというか、まあある意味嘘のっていうかそのキャラクターだったわけですけども、その生身の人間がそこで間に役者さんっていう僕らの才能とは全然別の才能が入ることですごくこのまあ人間に近い喋るセリフもそうだし感情表現もそうだし身振り手振りの演技もそうなんですけどもより人間に近いキャラクターをね作り上げることができたなっていうのは、感じてるんでストーリーの根底にあるテーマは一応、旅というのがその主軸になってます。で今回はまあ旅っていうのもあるんですけどもいろんなテーマが隠されてて多分 プレイする人それぞれが感じるテーマみたいなのがあると思うんですけどね。で、僕個人的には旅というよりもその親子、
The new 14 game was is a
もしくは
mobile
親父と娘みたいな
a
関係が
mobile
そういう
spin-off
中で語られるんですけども、
of the game.
僕は個人的にはその二児の父親なんで、そういう立場から共感できる
Or a
ところ、
mobile version,
もしくは、
maybe.
汲み取れるテーマっていうのはそういうところであるし、もしかしたらユーザーの人にとってはそのユーダとティーダのその男女の関係みたいなものを中にテーマを感じ取ることができるかもしれないし、そういった意味ではいろんなテーマが。
That's actually a good question. How did 10 come out as good as it did? And then the trio never did anything remotely close to it since. That's a good question, and one that I honestly don't have like a firm like answer to about like why. I think they did. I think that I think Final Fantasy VII Retrilogy is that game, but I also think that like Retrilogy also the thing with Retrilogy is that it's really bound to FF7 and the compilation of FF7. I really think that had like Rebirth, for example, had been Final Fantasy 17, it would have been praised maybe even more than just being Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. I know that sounds insane. Like that's an insane take because people love FF7 and etc. But I think that it would have actually allowed some of the geniusness of a lot of the systems that they created there to actually shine a lot more. If people were able to play it as its own standalone game, then playing it as part of a trilogy, it would have definitely sold more. That's for sure. I also think too that CBU1 has like greatly stepped up their presentation quality. Even more so since 13, they've stepped up their dialogue and their writing quite a bit too. The scenes in like Retrilogy are a lot more let's just say comfortable to watch than like a lot of the scenes in 13. I kind of just wish that they were just making FF17 right now, if I'm honest. And again, that's not a slight against the Retrilogy. I just think that they are actually doing so good that like it just would be cool to like see them make a new thing. Nah, fuck Retrilogy, no. Again, it's not saying like Retrilogy, like boo Retrilogy. It's actually like Retrilogy establishes so many new good things that like if they put that in like a FF17, that it just would have been like so well received, I think. And I guess not to say that 7R is not well received. It is. People love it. It's many people's favorite game of all time, etc. I guess I'm just saying personally that like if it was 17 and they had new characters and they were doing all the same things that they were doing to this degree for a brand new one, it'd be great. I want CBU1 to the FF17. I do think it's time for CBU1 to step up to the plate and do Final Fantasy 17, right? But how can they do it, chat, when they have another Retrilogy game to do? And I guess this is like what kind of makes me sad about this is that we're spending, of Square Enix's A team, like their best team, is spending like 10 years locked into one trilogy, which is a remake of an already existing thing. And again, that's not a slight against Retrilogy like whatsoever, but like it's just like in the time that it takes to get those 3 Retrilogy games, we could have had like maybe 17 and 18 like instead. And yeah, in hindsight of that, like I feel like if 17 and 18 were like as quality of a game as Remake and Rebirth, then that would have probably been better for Final Fantasy as an IP than trying to bring back FF7, actually. Ironically, at this point, I don't think it's a controversial statement to say anymore, but like I think the only way to really remake the impact of FF7 is to make a Final Fantasy 17 that is as good as Final Fantasy 7. I can be your shield, throw the shade at 7R. Actually, no. It's no shade whatsoever, because like I said, I think Rebirth is like, I still would consider Rebirth to be my game of the year. I think that like it is probably one of the best FF games ever made, period. Which is actually why it's like kind of complicated. Very like weird for me to say this and to feel this way. I know it's like how can you enjoy it to that degree and still say, ooh, but I wish it was FF17? Because like the only way to like truly get FF7 again is for a new game to be as good as FF7, right? Because even the best remake in the entire world can't be FF7 again. You know what I'm saying? Like nothing can ever be the thing again, if that makes sense. Like, you know, even if they remade Final Fantasy X, it still couldn't be Final Fantasy X again. You know what I'm saying? Like it couldn't actually do and be and the experience that Final Fantasy X was the first time I played it. It can't do that again, right? It can be a better version of Final Fantasy X, and that does have value. That does have a lot of value. But I'm kind of realizing with remakes, you know, especially that like, you know, no matter how good they are, they can't be the thing that they were the first time again, right? They can be a new thing. And I think that remake is doing that. But like at the same time, like I feel like the thing that is actually going to like be like the effect of FF7 or the effect of FF10 a second time in a row is going to be like a brand new FF game that we've never seen, heard, or played before. Right? Because actually the closest thing that Square Enix has had that's come to being FF7 again was Final Fantasy X, right? Which was a brand new FF game, right? So I think the only way to get that impact again is to give someone a brand new thing that causes us to feel that way again. For FF17, you need a game that topples all between story, graphics, and playability in today's era, just like the OG 7 out of the box, doable but expensive, right? I actually think that going back to FF7 has helped the team get their mojo back. I agree. I think that remaking FF7 was, and that may be where I'm wrong too, right? Is that like actually remaking FF7 might be the thing that they needed to make FF17 good. Like it may not have even been possible without them going back and remaking FF7. And I think that like whatever, if FF17 is by CBU1 is going to do a way fucking better job than they did with say like 13, for example, right? Like CBU1's next original FF game is going to be like a goat. I can almost guarantee it. I feel it. I just haven't seen that team in this stride of quality until they had to revisit 7 and rebuild it. They may have actually learned helpful things that pay off in the future in every aspect of game design, right? They made so many considerations in like Rebirth and Remake. I think if you go and you play Rebirth and Remake, you kind of look back at 13 and you kind of look, how did they make this when they're you know, when 13, there's so many considerations here that like they considered everything about the game, and they just, the things that they didn't consider when making 13 is just like, it's like, why didn't you think about that I think Rebirth has that impact for you because of its production quality and how that reflected in improvements to some important areas Remake didn't excel, right? But I think the world design, story, and questing really track it down. Have you played it yet, by the way, Hailin? From a timeline perspective, CBU1 is due for Rebirth over another 3 to 4 years before they could even start on a brand new original title. So my gut is another team may handle 17. Otherwise, 17 would be about 8 years away. That's also kind of another thing too, right? Is that we had like we used to have like a lot of consistency on like people that made these games, but like holy shit, do we not have any like, you know, type of like evolution? And it gets passed back and forth between so many different teams now that there's just not a, you know, very consistent structure there. FF has to go away from 7. 19 is the way to go with aesthetic and tone. Just put more characters, put more challenging battles and party members on 17. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I if I had to, you know, if gun to the head pick who I think or who I would want to develop 17, it would be CBU1, I think. And I think that I do think Re-Trilogy proved it to me that that they should do 17. Obviously, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the story stuff in Re-Trilogy to do with the new twists that they're building up with the Arbiters, but I don't think it's. I think that everything else in the game, in those games, makes them pretty exceptional. So, are there any notable developers in Square not doing 7 who you think would be good for 17? Natsuko Ishikawa, who wrote Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers and Endwalker. I'd love to see her be the lead scenario writer. In terms of director, in terms of people not working on it, no. In terms of people who are, I think Naoki Hamaguchi. I think Hamaguchi has all the right ideas. Bro followed me back on Twitter, so I'm a big fan. If you follow me back, I immediately sip. So for FF17, they need a unique game in every aspect. New approaches to storytelling. 10+ hour cutscenes just don't work nowadays. Unique battle system. We already have that with Remake. Completely agree. Unique world designs and reward system. Something Rebirth struggles with a lot. And unique RPG mechanics. That's the thing, right? Like, Liv T, you said it perfectly. Like, kind of the challenge facing Square with FF17 is like FF17 needs to be like nothing this world has ever fucking seen before. And that's a really tough call, right? Because I do think, you know, for example, with say like FF15 or 16, I do think that they're very derivative of like existing third-person action games, and that's not necessarily like to criticize them, but like it's not like you can't find another hack and slash game that plays similarly to FF16 enough, right? It's not so unique that like, oh, I don't know any other game that plays quite like this. It has its own nuances that make it special, but it's not like it is like outstanding, like in such a way that like it's never been seen before. And that's even more true of Final Fantasy 15, which is just an open world game with party members and doesn't really have a lot going on for it in that way. So yeah. And also too, a really big problem with the mainline titles recently is just they're so cutscene heavy, and 10's also cutscene heavy too, but like the cutscenes aren't like as well paced, and they drag on and on and on for a really long time, and they struggle with just telling the story through the gameplay without having to really make the cutscene go on for like a really long time. And so I think that they have to really reconsider everything. So 17 has to be something that really, whenever they talk about FF17, I don't want them to think like, oh, well, we looked at these two games and like we made, that. Not to say they can't have inspiration, but I want them to, or I feel there is a need really to innovate in a major way that doesn't like just, look at kind of like what's popular and try to make that. I think Hamaguchi is pretty genius as planning out the scope of games. Given the amount of content and rebirth in both variety and quality, it's kind of insane. It's so hard to do that. Yoshi P can punch out a ton of content, but he's talked about his approach and it can be pretty templatized. Yeah. Yoshi P, like the kind of like restriction that he puts on his teams is like very formulaic, because he's a money man as a producer, and so he thinks about how much the stuff is going to cost, and so he knows exactly how much cost and time it takes to make a certain thing, and so he's always able to consistently deliver content in a timely manner because there is a formula that they have in place so that it never exceeds that amount of time. It always stays on schedule. It's a very well-oiled machine, but it can get to a point where they create the same thing over and over again. And that's kind of a criticism that has plagued, some of CPU3 stuff. The reason why Elden Ring became popular is because the Souls-like design was new to the mainstream. From Software just made it more accessible with Elden Ring. Same regarding Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, exactly. Final Fantasy XIV became popular and successful because no MMORPG had this type of storytelling. Yep. So they have to do something really insane with 17, I think. Thalwick, hello. I think Yoshi P is goated for project management and making sure projects make money. He is not goated in the creative. I kind of agree, actually. I feel like he definitely will make sure that a project is profitable, and he's so good at managing his employees and managing the talent underneath him. But like when it comes to like actually pushing like a new innovative thing, I don't think that's really his specialty. I don't think that's how he spec'd out as a director and producer. I think he says, let's take a thing, let's study a thing, and we're going to make our version, our brand of that thing, and we'll make content like this, and we'll do that structure, and that's what keeps us profitable. We really did get something special with Kitase, Nomura, and Nojima. I think they're great, but I think they've also had like a rough period for most of the HD transition, and so they're kind of getting back on their feet in terms of stuff they wanted to create. I think that also too, maybe to answer someone's question about like why CBU1, like has kind of struggled to get back to like where they were. I think they have with Re-Trilogy, but I think that like when you look at like 13, for example, a lot of it was like techniques that they had used on the PS1 or PS2 era and prior to that. And then when they got to the HD era, where games, took many more times to create, much more development time to create than they did previously. Significantly more budget, significantly more planning, development of an engine, and not just an engine to be thrown away after it's done, but like like an actual, engine. And these were all things that were really foreign to them. And with Final Fantasy XIII's development, at one point, they said that they were just making art assets that they didn't even know were going to be used in the game. And this is an actual, like, basically quote from the developers, where they said that they made so many art assets that didn't make it into the game that they could basically make another game with the number of art assets that they made that were left over from 13. And that became 13.2. Actually, let me see if I can find that quote, because that's like one of those things people won't believe me unless you show it to them. Oh man, I don't even know if you can find that anymore because it's such a old quote. Oh fuck, I think that was Game Informer. No. No, I think that was Game Informer. Damn, I think it was. I think it was, chat. I remember the quote. Okay, there are other people who remember the quote. But they said that they had made so many art assets that they could basically make another game. And yeah. So anyway, they made so many art assets at one point. And the reason they were doing that is because the engine wasn't in place. And so they were just making art assets like crazy. Art assets that they didn't even know that were used. Now imagine how much that inflated Final Fantasy XIII's budget. That they were just like making art assets. Right? Everyone's citations have been ruined. No more proof of existence. I know. We lost so much video game history like that, dude. It's over. Like, holy fuck. I hate GameStop so much for that. 100K subs mean we can invite Kitase now onto the stream and ask him ourselves. Maybe so, right? But yeah, so anyway, their development pipeline back then was so different. Like, they would basically start by creating all these graphics and then they kind of worry about engine stuff like later, to my understanding. So they had to like basically entirely refigure out their entire development pipeline. And I think that actually shows in Crystal Tools and like a lot of design decisions in Final Fantasy 13. And so, yeah, it makes sense that it ended up like that. It's mentioned in the FF13 wiki and the FF dummied content page on Sit wiki. Oh, okay. Oh, awesome. Let me see. Let me see. Let's look for development. Oh wait, that's... Let me see. I'll pull it up if I find it. Okay. Let's take a look here. Development of Final Fantasy XIII began in February 2004, shortly after the release of Final Fantasy X-2 Last Mission. In Japan at the time, the project was internally referred to by the codename Colors World. I forgot about that until just now. Over the first year, director Motomu Toriyama and scenario concept Kazushige Nojima received ideas for the plot. Nojima thought up the crystal mythology that became the basis for the Fabula Nova Crystallis series, including concepts such as the fallacy and lessy. Toriyama then created a story premise on this mythology. He wanted to portray characters at the mercy of a predetermined unjust fate who don't belong together but collide heavily. In order to achieve this, each of the stories, story's 13 chapters, was made to focus on different protagonists. Chapters 7 and 8 were to mark a turning point in the interpersonal relationships of the party. In March 2006, when the structural part of the narrative started to come together, lead scenario writer Daisuke Watanabe joined the team. Toriyama gave him a rough outline of the first 8 chapters, which included several cornerstone scenes that needed to be kept, like when the party members were separated or reunited. He told Watanabe what he wanted to express with the scenario and asked him to flesh out the story to strengthen how points in his outline connected. For example, Toriyama's okay, let's find the actual we could read this. Oh, okay, this is like, oh, this is a lot. Let me see. Seems where it's wait, I don't think it says it here, does it? Unlike previous games in the series, which are more inspired by Asian locations and culture, Final Fantasy XIII, art team, Final Fantasy XIII was intended by the art team to be reminiscent of the United States. What the fuck? What the fuck? Pulse was based on the landscapes the photography team took across the country, and Cocoon was intended to be a melting pot of different ethnicities. What the fuck? That sounds like Cap. I mean, what the fuck? I didn't know this. The setting was also given a science fiction aesthetic to make it stand out. Okay, that much I knew. Art director Isamu revealed that many additional scenarios, such as Lightning's home. Okay, this is kind of it. The many additional scenarios, such as Lightning's home, which were functioning in an unreleased build during development, were left out of the final version due to concerns about the game's length and volume. Oh, here it is, right here. Oh, here's the exact quote. Thank you so much. Kami Kokurio, sorry, said that the content they cut was in itself enough to make another game. According to Toriyama, the cuts were made in various stages of the game's development, and some of the content was removed just before the game's completion. The game, unlike previous titles in this series, includes no explorable towns or areas. Toriyama said in an interview that the team was unable to make them as graphically appealing as the rest of the game and chose to eliminate them. Toriyama intended to have a piece of downloadable content for the game that included new area, weapons, and quests, but was forced to cut it due to quality concerns so late in the project and difficulties with the different systems for extra content on the 2 gaming consoles. J-Pong, thank you so much. You were right. Yeah. That's interesting. But also like literally what? literally what though? Like, that's like, I think though, like ultimately what ends up being like the most upsetting about that is like, unlike where is it at? The team was unable to make them graphically appealing, so they cut them. That's kind of infuriating to read a little bit. Like, not gonna lie. Like, because we couldn't make them, like, the graphics on them look good, we just decided not to have that be a thing. that kind of like, I know because they said before HD towns were too hard. I didn't know that there was a quote out there of him saying that basically like we couldn't make it graphically appealing, so we just decided not to make the towns. That's like, that is like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I hate that so much. We couldn't make it look cool. There's probably more to it than that. I mean, the famous quote is this. I guess this is just another way of saying this. You ain't getting a Final Fantasy VII remake, chat. Well, yeah, I guess that's not difficult than what he said before. Considering the amount of work to make graphics that deserve HD, it is hard to make towns in the conventional style. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that's not too different than the quote, HD towns are too hard. In a recent interview with the Ultimania, they said that the limit isn't the HD technology, it's the amount of artisanship. Considering the amount of work to make the graphics that deserve HD, it is hard to make. Yeah, that's what he just said. FF7's graphics were beautiful at the time, but when you consider we all played them on a 4x3 SD TV screen rather than 1080p HD behemoths. This is so fucking funny in modern terms. We're all playing games on today. You realize it's a lot of work that artists put in to make the game look as epic as Final Fantasy should. That's one reason 13 doesn't have conventional RPG towns. That sucks, though. Like, either way, I get, it's basically saying that like towns would basically require a lot of budget to make them graphically look good, and because we couldn't graphically make them look good within budget, we had to cut them. But like, you have to remember, this is also the era that they made FF14. Yeah, FF14 1.0. They were a little stuck up about they were way too stuck up about their graphics, right? And so they basically were saying, if we can't make the graphics good, we're just going to eliminate towns. Yeah, I knew you mean 1.0. Yeah. And so, yeah, that, you know, it's just insane. It's insane to think about now. Yeah, because we go back and we look at that and we just think like, that is goofy. Graphics need to be pared down industry wide. It's crippling games. It is. And like the PS3's era was like when we first started to see how much of a negative impact that graphics were having with that leap. And we've gotten that under control to an extent now, because it's easier to make some of this stuff than it was before. But at the same time, it's still unbelievably expensive. It still costs way too much money, way too many people. Yeah. I know it's for any games, smaller the team, the stronger the art style, the larger the team will have with that problem, it probably makes it more generic. The reason it makes it more generic with a larger team is that like with a larger team, you have to have a more mainstream appeal art style, right? So you don't want to be unique. And the reason is because when you have that larger team, you have to sell a lot more units than you do when you have the smaller team. And so you have to make something that is more risk averse the more you spend on creating a game. And so that's why your big AAA games are always kind of a generic AI generated third person action game that have skill trees and like all the other trappings that you'd expect from modern third person open world action games. And the reason is because that is guaranteed to sell. And so, you know, the problem is that as games get more expensive, we want games, or I say we want games. from the perspective of from the publisher and the producers, want games that are guaranteed to turn a profit, because when you are spending $200 million to make something, you aren't going to want to take any chances with $200 million. You're going to want something that has a guaranteed ROI. And so because of that, you kind of get to where, Square Enix is coming from with wanting to make Final Fantasy an action game, because when they have to spend, $200 million making that game, they don't want to spend $200 million making a turn-based game that people may not buy because it's turn-based, right? The way they calculate the risk is that it's better to spend that money on making a game that you're going to complain about is action, and then ultimately still buy, and then maybe we'll get some guy who doesn't normally play Final Fantasy games but will play this one because it is action, right? So that's the risk assessment that happens there to make them be like, oh, okay, maybe we should go action. And it's also how money really dictates game design. It's an unfortunate fact of dev, but it's true. The amount of money being spent kind of determines what the game is going to look and play like. And generally speaking, the more money that they're spending on a game, the more that game has to be guaranteed to be loved by the widest audience that it can possibly be loved by. And this is why you may find, as time has gone on, you may find yourself kind of drifting away from a lot of AAA games, kind of into like a lot of smaller AA niche indie games and stuff like that, because you're finding a lot more unique experiences there. And I think we all still like our AAA experiences, but like looking at the AAA experiences, I do think that it's fairly normal to find yourself feeling like, every AAA game is kind of samey. There's a reason it's kind of samey, because, they have looked at the numbers. They looked at, what's proven to sell the most amount of units humanly possible to guarantee investors a return. And they keep making that game over and over and over and over and over again. And that is the reason you feel so fatigued with games, is because they want a guaranteed ROI on their 200 million, and they're going to look at what works and they are going to produce that. And so that is kind of the, unfortunate reality of that. And SP is correct about design assessment, but games like FF16 should not cost anywhere near 200 million. I mean, they do though. Those graphics are really expensive to make. Paying all those voice actors, it's all really expensive. And so, cost reduction in games is like, oof. In the past, in the Final Fantasy game on previous non-high definition consoles, we were able to take everyone's ideas and include them in the bento box system, where you have all the different little things there. So we have mini games or towns where you're able to talk to all the people. Right, exactly. And now it's like, dude, we're already like 100+ million in the hole and a year behind. And investors are on our ass, and we got all these things, so we can't include your dumb ass fucking mini game, bro. We have to cut it. I mean, a lot of what just made like, Final Fantasy like kind of like not like what it used to be is just simply AAA game development. Like a lot of it is just that. I mean, I'd say most of it really is just the realities of making a game in 2024 versus, making a game back during the, the golden era of games, from that SNES period to the PS2, where you could make a really expensive game, but you didn't really have to in order to make something that was truly impressive, right? Like a flagship game like Crash Bandicoot. If I recall correctly, they said Crash Bandicoot was made by like 9 people. Like the core team of Crash was like 9 people. That's a flagship title, right? You know, God of War Horizon cannot be made with 9 people. You know, that's impossible nowadays. And so, you know, we went from like, you know, these small teams being able to make these games that could be console sellers to we now need 1,000 people, 1,000 plus people in order to make a game. But at the same time, no one wants to dial back. No one wants to say, okay, I want less content. I want less this. I want uglier graphics. Nobody wants to back down off of those things, right? So what do we do that's not 8-year development cycle and, you know, $250 million? What do you do that's not that? That's the predicament we're stuck in the game industry right now with AAA. It's why AAA sucks. And because our balls are caught in the bear trap. You know, I don't want to imagine how expensive the new Monster Hunter is, and it's okay too, because they can make it back. It's like GTA 6 being rumored to cost like $1 billion, right? GTA 6 can cost $1 billion. It doesn't matter because Rockstar is going to make it back. So you also have those types of games too. But it also makes GTA 7 seem like the most impossible thing ever. Like GTA 7 will take like 2 decades and cost like $5 billion. Because the escalation is going to keep going. I don't think they post any actual data on the cost of the game. With that said, as we talked earlier, I think Yoshi P is pretty good at the business side, and I would bet that 16 was on budget. Yeah, I'm willing to bet too. They did say that the icon fights costed a ridiculous amount, though. I remember the icon fight director saying that they were the most expensive part of budget, which I don't doubt at all. Because not only, I mean, just from a cutscene perspective, those are really expensive cutscenes to make. But they also included gameplay to them too. So, you know, it's tough. It's very tough. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I'll be back tomorrow to pick up this conversation because I think it's a really interesting one. Again, I'm a balance between streaming and doing my retrospective, so we'll be back for another talk. Okay, hope you guys look forward to it tomorrow.